Hello everyone, this is Kevin Brooks with the wrap-up of the BK Solutions Soil Series program. This is the end of our 17 lesson program. I hope you've enjoyed it and you find that it is useful. Over time, you can look through this in the spring, for instance, when you start looking at fertility and adding fertilizer. If you're a crop share landowner, you will have the opportunity then to take a look and see whether or not your farmer is putting adequate fertilizer out there, or at the end of the year when you require the farmer to provide you with the reports on yields and also what they are planning to put back in fertilizer. You're going to have an idea of whether your soil nutrient bank is being kept up. Just going to briefly go through the 17 lessons, provide you with a cover page for your booklet, and also just want to emphasize that over the course of time, as you're working through this, please give me a call or an email. Since you took the course, there'll be no charge. I'll help you with whatever it is that you need help on. And I hope that you find, again, that it's useful and that you use this information in the future. We started with lesson number 1 on soil texture. Soil texture was the mix of sand, silt, and clay of your farm. And we find that farms have varying degrees of that. And the ideal, of course, is a loam mixture, with the term loam somewhere in the title. Not all soils have that. If they have a clay base, it's going to be harder to drain. They're going to hold on to nutrients very tight, and when it gets dry, the soils are going to get very hard. As opposed to a sand on the opposite end with the biggest soil particles, that's not going to hold water very well at all, or hold nutrients well at all, and things are going to get dry. Of course, in the middle, we have silt, and again, the mixture of sand, silt, and clay is a loam, which is what most farmers prefer to have. We learned that soils have soil structure. Structure refers to the shape of the soil particles. They can be flat, blocky, platy, etc. And how those are glued together and put together make a determination in how well the soils drain and how well the roots can penetrate. Problem is that with practices that we do in farming, sometimes the soil structure is changed or even destroyed. For instance, a blocky soil structure can be smashed into plates. As you can see, something like this will have a much harder time water getting down through there than something that's aggregated in terms of granules. So it's important not to work soils when it's too wet and make damage to our soils. Heavy equipment can also do the same thing. As farmers get larger and larger, that's more and more of a concern. And they don't always have the opportunity to wait until a particular field is dry, and we can see those damages. But it's not just limited to large farmers. Small farmers can do the same thing. Soils have chemistry. We looked at charges of the particles and cations and how well they can exchange the cations, which in other words, how readily they become acid for pH, how readily they can pick up soil nutrients and hold on to them in water, or how hard they hold on to them. So chemistry is an important part of soils. Keep in mind that anhydrous ammonia is one of the things that we do that chemistry-wise actually decreases the pH of the soil, which makes it more acidic. And that was lesson number 3. Lesson number 4, we talked about the soil environment. Soil is a mixture of air and water, pore space, materials, living organisms. Keeping those living organisms alive is important as long as they're not pests. We also need a good balance of air and water. If it's filled too much, it's with water, those pore spaces become saturated. Sometimes we can put a compaction layer down below the surface where water can't get past any further. When we get those compaction layers, the water can penetrate for a while, but not all the way down through. If it becomes too dry, there's no moisture for the roots to be able to take up for the plant. So we have to be very aware of the chemistry. And again, over tillage, deep tilling, or different types of tilling can help to compact those soils and change the soil chemistry, as well as, like I said, some of our production practices such as anhydrous ammonia. So keeping the soils living is important. Some people like to go to no-till. I'm not here to espouse one over the other. Now, if you do have erodible soils, especially high erodible soils, you have to have a plan in place. But even if you don't have highly erodible soils by definition, any slope at all can be a place for water to take away soil particles or to change the soil structure. So you need to keep that in mind when a production practice is put into place. Another important part, of course, of the soil environment is organic matter, which was former living plant material, and we get nitrogen from that, as well as water holding capabilities and such. So the soil environment is highly important. From there, we wanted to take a look at your farm and actually produce a report on Web Soil Survey. That led us to lesson number 5, where we found our farms on Google Earth. It's a good way just to go in and do a simple measurement of your farm. If you want to get an aerial photo, you can do that. But our main purpose in Google Earth was so that we could more easily find our farm on Web Soil Survey, which isn't quite so easy. And from Web Soil Survey, we generated a report that gave us our soil types and the productivity index, which we can convert to Bulletin 811, which gives us an idea of how productive our soils are, and things like how easily they maintain their soil pH or how they can lose it, how easily they can maintain soil fertility, drainage, etc. And we had some really nice reports there as well. So hopefully you've generated your report, and if you haven't, please give me a call or an email and I'll be glad to help you do it, to show you how to do it or even map it out for you if you need help with that. The main thing from this course is that I hope that you put together a report that will give you a much better idea of what you have for a farm. We took a look at the bulletins from the University of Illinois, 811 and 810. Remember that 810 is for your property tax purposes. Those have a lower productivity index rating, which never changes, and they also have yields. The yields associated on Bulletin 810 and 11 were made back in the late 1990s, so we have to adjust those upwards so that you can find out about how modern yield should be. From the bulletins, we also made adjustments for slope and erosion damage. Keep in mind that that is a very important part of it, and not to forget that. Bulletin 811, if you remember, is used by real estate agents in selling farms, and also in the Illinois Society of Farm Managers and Professional Farm Managers and Rural Appraisers in determining how productive your farm is. So you have to be able to convert those back and forth and understand that. And then we calculated what your average farm productivity rating actually was, and then assigned yields to that, and hopefully you were able to get a more clear idea of what the yields in your farm should be, but also keep in mind that those yields also are dependent on tile that's been added and maintained, as well as the fertility levels of your farm. Those are all highly important in that, and that all gets back to your farmer. We talked about the Natural Resource Conservation Service programs to help you to protect your farm, which are administered through USDA and FSA. There are a lot of good programs out there. It doesn't hurt to call them up and get a professional out there and to see what can be done to better protect your soils, even if you don't see it. So we can see by the pictures in lesson number 17 on soil erosion and tillage, damage can happen without a lot of, without even really noticing it or being able to see it unless you go out and look. Hopefully you gained from looking at those pictures and seeing some of the practices of farmers. I definitely would reward a farmer who's putting in the strips or keeping them maintained and not tilling over the edges of ditches and waterways, as opposed to those who are. You need to have a serious and frank discussion if you have a farmer that's doing that. And in Lesson 13, we looked at other programs and things you needed to be aware of, such as cleaning out drainage ditches. Lessons 14 and 15, we looked at fertility. 14 especially for potassium and phosphorus. It's so important that the farmer not deplete that and that enough be added, and that you as a landowner, especially in crop share, that you're not being charged too much or you're charged what you should be paying. But also for the crop share, you don't want to have a situation to where the tenant leaves and there's no recourse to go back and make sure that things are put back in order. And it can't be done all in 1 year if there's a deficiency. Again, what I recommend, get all of the yield records in verifiable forms. Going back even to the 2002 Farm Bill, the USDA wouldn't even allow certain records if they were not certified or verifiable records, so they should be verifiable records, scale tickets, etc. You need to have control of those and also get copies of your fertility reports and what the farmer actually put out there. One of the things I do suggest is that maybe the landowner, even in a cash rent situation, take over the fertility testing and charge that back in the form of higher rent. And in some cases, I've seen some landowners who were concerned about fertility levels actually taking over that program and then charging it back to the farmer in the form of cash rent. We did talk about profits in pH, and that's an often one that is overlooked. About every 4 years, their farmer's probably going to need to be limed, some more than others, some parts of the field more than others. And we took a look at those costs and the benefits to you and what those do to yields. And finally, with Lesson 17, we took a look at soil erosion and tillage. I really recommend, though, that you learn about your farm, find out what the pluses and minuses are and erosion points are, and see whether or not you should be looking at a no-till farming operation or some type of more conservation tillage as opposed to traditional. It's your farm. Damage, it takes a long time to recover, likely even more than in what your lifetime could even be from some rainfalls in potential. The impact can be severe. No-till doesn't always take care of it. We saw a picture of a farm that was no-till that actually had some erosion damage because of the high volume of water that had moved across that field, even during a dry year like we had in 2012. Again, if you have any questions, please give me a call. Kevin Brooks, KW Brooks at bksolutionsonline.com, phone number 217-586-3894. It's been a pleasure to serve you, and if there's anything I can do, if you need somebody to come out and look at your farm, give you some advice, etc., and things to look for, help in negotiations, whether you're a farmer or a landowner, I'm here to do that. Thank you, and we'll see you later. Bye.